Good morning and welcome back. I hope you got some snacks and water to hold you over for another hour before lunch. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Conversation with the Deans. This is our second annual Conversation with the Deans. I'm Catherine Lucey. I'm the Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost at UCSF, and I'm a resident alum from the Internal Medicine residency. Alumni Weekend gives us the opportunity to reconnect, reflect, and look ahead together. And this year, that reflection is especially meaningful. This is our 10th anniversary of our UCSF Pride values. Pride stands for professionalism, respect, integrity, diversity, and excellence. These values are not just words. They shape how UCSF teaches, discovers, leads, cares for patients, and serves across all of our schools and programs. This morning's conversation brings together leaders across UCSF to reflect on how those values are showing up in the work that we do every day. Each dean brings a distinct perspective shaped by priorities and strengths of their school, but all are united by a shared commitment to preparing the next generation to lead with excellence, purpose, and impact. Now, I'm going to read a brief bio of each of these people, but before I do that, I have to say, there are really no words to describe how spectacular this group of leaders are, and I am truly privileged to get to work closely with them on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. They show up every single day reflecting Pride values, and every single day working hard to ensure that our faculty have the best environment in which to do the best discovery like you heard about from Steve Hauser, that our learners are treated well and prepared for the careers that they aspire to, that our patients get the highest care possible, and that our community recognizes how special UCSF is because we work hard for them. So it's really my pleasure to be able to have this conversation today with the deans, and I'll tell you just a little bit about them. To my immediate left is Dr. Kathy Giacomini. She's Dean of the UCSF School of Pharmacy and Associate Vice Chancellor for Pharmacy Affairs. She's a PharmD PhD, and she's an incredible scientist. She leads the school's strategic agenda and supports its research, patient care, and education mission. Next to her, with the bow tie, very nice, bow tie. Dr. Michael Reddy is the Dean of the School of Dentistry and Associate Vice Chancellor for Oral Health Affairs. A periodontist by training, he leads a school with more than 500 faculty, a clinical enterprise that sees over 48,000 patients each year, and one of the top NIH-funded dental research programs in the nation. To his left is Dr. Nikkei Blake. She's Vice Provost and Dean of the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs, a leading voice on equity and diversity in higher education. She holds a master's degree in biology from UT San Antonio and a PhD in neuroscience from Washington University in St. Louis. Next is Dean Talmadge King, and I can't see what's on his tie. Oh, it says UCSF. He's got a nice UCSF tie. He's Dean of the School of Medicine and Vice Chancellor for Medical Affairs. He began his career at UCSF in 1997 as Chief of Medical Services at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital, and then became Chair of Medicine at UCSF and has been our Dean for the last 11 years. It's been my incredible privilege to work with him. And he is internationally known for his pioneering work in the management of interstitial lung disease. And to my far left is Dean Carol Dawson. Dean Dawson is Dean of the School of Nursing and Associate Vice Chancellor for Nursing Affairs, a UCSF alumna. She also serves on the Executive Committee of the UCSF AIDS Research Institute and the Internal Advisory Board for the Center for AIDS Research, and she started her career as a hospice nurse. So we have incredible talent here, and we're going to ask them to opine on a series of questions, some of which came from our audience. I'll let you know when there's an audience question. And I just want to remind the deans that everything should be said, but not by everyone. So,
okay.
So we have right now until 11:50 to have a great conversation. So I'm going to start with Dean King, who is having a momentous year, as you heard from Chancellor Hoggett. This year marks the 10th anniversary of UCSF's Pride values. a period that closely overlaps with your tenure as dean. Looking back, where have you seen those values most clearly shape the culture of UCSF, and where do you think they matter most for UCSF's future?
Well, I think the fundamental thing is that it created an intentional culture here at UCSF. So I think, thought we embodied a lot of those values 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, when people were here. But we actually wrote them down and said, let's actually try to live these values and intentionally, day over day, year over year. And what I've seen in my time as dean is that essentially, sometimes I'll walk up to someone and say, do you know the pride values? And they look at me like, holy crap, is this an exam? And you have to sort of stop and go, PR, right? And you think about it, but then they'll rattle it off. But what I also realized was they didn't remember the words, but they remembered what we were trying to accomplish. And so over this 10 years, I've seen it become so prominent to us. We use pride as a verb. It's like, basically, pride values, let's do this. And we look at each other, and we bring it up at almost every session we have. Someone would bring up, are we meeting our pride values? And I think that has been very helpful in just setting the tone, and it particularly in a time like this when things have gotten really difficult. There are a lot of pressures on us. And so it allows us to refocus without having to have a huge conversation. We just say to each other, are we following our pride values? And it just rebalances us. So I think that's one of the things I've seen it.
And what do you think about the future? How will it help us moving forward?
Well, someone just asked me, I think Kim, she's not maybe like, anyway, she said, do you know about AI becoming a doctor, that they have malpractice and they're gonna, she is right then, I'm like, no, we're gonna need AI, we're gonna need pride values to actually use AI at its best. And so I think our future, one of the hopes we have in the School of Medicine is when you see a UCSF graduate from our School of Medicine, you ought to be able to tell them by the fact that they embody these pride values and that they see themselves as a healer, a team player, someone who's interested in innovation, and most importantly, that they care about the people they're taking care of. And everybody is fascinating me. People, and I've fallen into this trap too. You start talking to chat, and you actually start subtly believing to yourself that you're talking to a person. My wife says, are you in there talking to Harvey again? And she's talking about chat, right? Because I often talk to Claude, which is the other one, Anthropics, right? And she goes, are you talking to Harvey? And I'm like, you do know there's not a human being on the other side of this. That's an algorithm, right? And so I think one of the things we have to do is make sure our people who work here, all of us, understand our pride values, that they're important, and that no matter what you say, Harvey and Claude don't have those.
That's great. Dean Reddy, in your monthly newsletter, you reflected on the 10-year anniversary of Pride Values. What do you have to add to what Dean King said?
I think what he said was just terrific. That if you go around the nation and you go to a university, an academic health system, you go to a major corporation, they all have values. And you ask them what they are, and they say, oh yeah, I think they're on the wall in the library, somewhere. But at UCSF, people live that. So we have this goal, this true north of trying to advance health worldwide, and everyone's focused on that. And the pride values are kind of the guardrails on the highway to make sure we're not going there. Every day I am in a sense of awe with our faculty. Their creativity, their resiliency, their compassion. You just heard Steve Hauser, right? How could you not be in a sense of awe? But occasionally, some of our faculty come up with an idea or do something that is just awful, right? And you don't really want to tell them, that's the most terrible idea I've ever heard. But you can go back and say, how does that reflect on our pride values? Is that professional or the integrity? And often we can get them back on the right course.
Very good.
You heard it first here. Some faculty have awful ideas. Probably no one in this audience, though.
It's so much easier than trying to send them back to their mother. So it's much more functional.
I also want to thank Dean King for breaking the AI barrier. Every time, we're actually taking sort of bets on how long it takes in any given speech today for someone to say AI. And it's ranged from like 10 seconds, but we got into it about 4 minutes. So thank you for doing that. We shorted that, and I think we're going to make some money on this today. Okay, leadership through uncertainty. It has been an unusual time, to say the least. And there are lots of disruptions we're facing. AI is one, a positive disruption. But we've also had some not so positive disruptions, funding pressures, assaults on immigration, attacks on DEI, lots of broader uncertainty. And some of them actually really butt up against our zeitgeist here at UCSF, what we are passionate about, what we're committed to do for our patients from all communities, regardless of their power or privilege. So I'm wondering how I'm going to ask each of the deans here, how do your values help guide you making decisions in this time? And how have you managed to sustain our commitment to pride values when there's a lot of attacks on many of the principles that we hold most dear? I guess I'll start with Dr. Blake.
So I think for us in GEPA, so just so you know, Graduate Division is now the Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs, Division of Graduate Education. So in GEPA, there's a certain level that one has to let me say it this way. My dad, I always talk about my dad. My dad says, can't worry about things over which you have no control. So what are the things that we can control? I think there are two things that we do really well in GEPA that helps us to drive our values and affirm our students: community and training. So we spend a lot of time thinking about how we affirm our students. And I'm just going to give you two really good examples. So all the chaos is going around, and we say to our students, prepare for rain. Can't do anything else, just prepare for rain. But the things that we can do is we can begin to affirm some of the things they do. So those of you who have PhDs in the room know that there's a consequential exam that students have somewhere between their second and third years called candidacy. It's a huge exam. It's lots of pressure, high stakes. And our students go in, most of them do well. And then they come out, you ramp up to this exam, and then they come out and it's like, psh, there's this just drop. So we decided about 2 years ago that we're gonna have the equivalent of a white coat ceremony. Most of you know what a white coat ceremony is. We give it to them in their second year, but we give them a blue coat. And what we're saying to them, we're affirming to them that you are like the 1% of students who are most likely to become PhD students. We're in this room, it's lots of goodwill and lots of good feelings, their families comes. It's almost like commencement, but in the second year. Mm-hmm. So we try to build community, and we also try to provide opportunities. For example, lots of our students want to travel internationally to present their work. Our postdoc dean, who is sitting here today, came up with a plan to use some of the funding that we have to provide travel scholarships for our postdocs so that they can go present, because our postdocs were in this position where they were dropping off because their funding was gone and no way to present their work. So our dean provided these opportunities for postdocs to go travel to present their work, and that opens up job opportunities for them. So our job really is to provide the infrastructure to help celebrate them and to help them be their best selves in terms of moving forward with their careers.
Thanks. Reminds me of something Dan Bernal said, who's our community and government relations person. He said, you have to learn to practice selective alarm in this environment. Not everything is a 5-star. You can't treat everything as a 5-alarm fire. You'll just exhaust yourself. Dean Dawson Rose, how about you?
Leading through uncertainty.
Leading through uncertainty.
Well, you know, we had a policy discussion last night with alumni from the School of Nursing who are engaged in the Medicaid Commission to imagine the disaster of eliminating it in the state of California. So, which is an impending disaster maybe, right? And coming through COVID, being in this certain federal environment, and I was reflecting last night at this discussion, as Catherine mentioned, I have been in the HIV field for my entire career. And it started because it affected the people in my life. And just like there's so much disruption and you have to show up every day. And the thing about the pride values, because I do think about this a lot, it's a structure. And it's continuous, and it clarifies for people who are afraid, our students who are afraid, our young research scientists who are afraid they're not going to be funded and they won't have the academic careers that some of our more senior faculty have. It's like, we're strong. We're here. We're not changing. We have these same values. We care about people. As nurses, as sociologists in the school, and that's where we're going, because we want the experience of people to be better, whether it's at the individual level, the community level, policy changes, and we're not changing. You know, we're not giving up, and it's incredibly powerful to have our chancellor and our leadership and to continue to talk about the pride values and just to be able to transmit to individuals in the school, we are not changing. We continue. The work continues. And you just show up every day. You know, and my experience of being in these different disruptive moments, and I know we'll come out on the other side. And we have to stay connected to who we are. And that is very strong here. And that's what I would say, yes.
I think you also said something important that I've seen in action from this group over the past, it feels like 7 years, like dog years, but only human years for us in academia, is sometimes you just have to spend time confronting the unimaginable. Because if you can say, okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? And can we survive it? Then everything is going to be okay. And I think we've done that. We've done the scenario planning. We've actually modeled out things. And it's amazing how calming that can be if you have a plan. And the only way you can have a plan is to imagine the very worst thing that can happen and then work backwards from that. So that, I think that, I'm glad you did that with Medicaid last night. I'd love to hear what you said. But
it wasn't me.
Yes.
It was some of our nurse
some of your
leaders.
Nursing fantastic.
But it is showing up even when it's hard. Yeah.
We're going to switch to the next question, preparing learners for the future. And I'm going to ask Dr. Giacomini to start. Across your schools and programs, how are you preparing learners not only to succeed in today's environment, but to actually be the next generation of leaders? And I know you've implemented a number of innovative programs. We'll go to Dean Reddy after that.
Okay, yeah, so we in the School of Pharmacy, I don't know, many of the alumni out there who graduated with a PharmD degree went through a 4-year curriculum. We implemented a few years ago a 3-year curriculum. And we did that for a couple of reasons. One, it got students out in the workforce faster. They reduced their debt. It helped fill the gaps in pharmacists that were going on or created all over the state. So that was one of the reasons. Another reason that we did that was they would then finish in 3 years, and they could have an additional year or so to do advanced training. And so when I became dean, we decided, let's create some training programs that PharmDs could take and others could take that would really advance their careers, and they're already prepared for any career in pharmacy or pharmaceutical sciences. So let's do that. So one of the things we created was an artificial intelligence and computational drug discovery and development master's degree program. It's a one-year program. The students come in after they've finished their PharmD, or even students can just apply from all over, and they can come in and they learn about, we all know that drug development isn't anymore, I don't want to say no more, but fewer and fewer animal testing. A lot of drug discovery and development is done through computation. Computation where you get the protein modeled and you dock a zillion compounds until you find the right computational compound. And then you lead optimize all of this. So we teach this now in a one-year program, and the students end up in capstone projects at NVIDIA, at Genentech, at OpenAI, all over. They're taking our students for these capstone projects. So this has been a new innovation. And Joanne Chen today is the architect of this program, and she will be giving a discovery talk at 2 o'clock. Putting in a word for Joanne. So
Fantastic.
please go hear her.
Yes,
She's
stay tuned.
amazing.
Dean Reddy, you've done some really interesting work and actually been successful with the state getting some funding for some expansion of dentistry into under-resourced environments. So you can talk a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, so one of the programs we developed is called DDS Aspire, and Aspire is about teaching people to be community leaders in advocacy, public health research, in addition to being great dentists who have the right skills for the community. It's kind of a spin-off of the prime programs in medicine that have been extremely successful. For the last 4 years, we've been going to Sacramento, looking for support to get some advocacy from this. But this really stemmed from a conversation I had with our provost, Dr. Lucey, at one point saying we're developing a new curriculum. And then I spoke to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Secretary of Health and Human Services for the state of California, not the one in Washington, who actually is a doctor. And he said, but the conversation went to the fact that California ranks 50th out of 50 states in a number of oral health shortage areas. Dead last in the country. And I said, how can that be? And his comments were, and what is UCSF going to do about that? And I said, well, this is kind of your job. He goes, hey, he said to me, well, Mike, if you don't take the lead, who's going to do it? And, that was sort of like a call to action, at the time of saying, like, we have to make a difference, and we have to embed our people in the community to have them be leaders in everything they do. And so that's sort of what inspired this to move forward.
Great. I love the fact that, no one here is resting on their laurels, let me say that. They are continuously looking for ways to advance health worldwide. And to do it not just through kind of the usual, comments to the newspapers and things like that, but with real actionable things. Dean Blake, maybe you can build a little bit on the artificial intelligence issues. How are you thinking about helping graduate students prepare for artificial intelligence? And I just actually went a little rogue. I didn't give her that question ahead of time, but that's why I'm sitting here and you're sitting there. So
That's all right. So I think there are two things that we're doing, one on the student side and one on the faculty side. So on the student side, we have a course that we call Responsible Conduct of Research that really evolves to deal with critical issues in the moment. And once again, our Associate Dean Jen and Shaquita work with both students and postdocs, and we're now integrating responsible use of artificial intelligence into that curriculum. On the faculty side, very interestingly, and Catherine does not know this, so it's interesting that she threw that question at me. On the faculty side, we just had a conversation with our program directors, and we're having a whole retreat around the use of artificial intelligence in today's graduate education, and really rethinking how the high stakes, remember that high stakes exam I just talked to you about? How we should really leverage those high stakes exams in the context of artificial intelligence. I don't think anybody else at the graduate level, at least not at academic health centers, has done that, and we're about to launch into that in October.
That's great, thank you. Dean Dawson-Rose, the chancellor talked about the Doctor of Nursing Practice program. Can you talk a little bit about what is the career path for people who have doctors of nursing practice, and how will they be living the UCSF values moving forward?
Does it have to also include AI? I'm joking.
You can say, and then Dean King, I'm going to ask you about AI afterwards too.
Oh, God.
Just to give you a heads up.
I won't talk about AI here, but what I will talk about with the Doctor of Nursing Practice, which we've gone through a major change in our programs in the School of Nursing to change our advanced practice nurse roles, which are traditionally, you would know them as nurse practitioners, psych, mental health nurse practitioners, family nurse practitioners, people working in acute care, midwifery, that now the terminal degree here at this school is no longer a master's degree for those students, but a doctorate of nursing practice. And students are being equipped for a complicated world of healthcare, which you all know that if you are a patient or a provider, that our system is becoming more and more complicated. And our students are really focused on taking effective approaches, what we learn in research, how do we translate it into care? And that's what that program is for. It's about implementation in different systems, but from my perspective, it's also the opportunity for a group of individuals, nurses, who are the biggest group of individuals working in the healthcare system, in a hospital, in the community, globally, and changing the system to better serve the needs of people. And that's part of what the Doctorate of Nursing Practice is focused on, translating knowledge into actual practice and system change.
That's great. Sort of like implementation science and quality.
Yeah, implementation science. Yeah, it's not research, but it's taking
scholarly
work and discoveries and putting it into implementation, right? Improving quality of care, improving patient safety, medication errors reduced, like things that are meaningful to people and their health.
That's awesome. Thank you. Actually, rather than talk about artificial intelligence in education, Talmadge, maybe you can lead off on this question. Can you envision the most important opportunities UCSF has to translate discovery and innovation into better care and broader public impact?
Wow.
In 10 words or less. No.
Well, so first of all, I think that we have been really fortunate over the last, several decades. UCSF has been at the forefront of scientific discovery in our field. Right? We have the good fortune of not only having outstanding faculty who lead it, but we recruit, all of our schools recruit spectacular students. We live in California. We have the opportunity to recruit just the best and the brightest. And those students have been working with the faculty and with the staff that we have. Again, we have the opportunity to recruit and retain outstanding staff. And so I believe that we're poised to really guide, and we have this culture of pride. But this whole thing of, we work very hard at something we talk about all the time, which is we want to collaborate and work together. One of the things that was interesting in Steve's presentation, that was subtlety that came to me, was how he talked about the postdoc that worked in his lab and how they helped. How he talked about the other people he worked with who actually helped him work through this problem and solve it. That, to me, Steve was talking about what's the essence of UCSF. They were not sitting in a room holding everything here, right? And they were actually working together. UCSF, we talk about it a lot because we want to live it and do it, and we believe the D part of the pride. Diversity is really, really, really hard. And but diversity has been proven to improve outcomes. You have to have the ability to sit in a room with someone you disagree with or comes at things from a different perspective for you to be better. Yeah. And at UCSF, we try to actually put our arms around that and control that and use it to our advantage. And I think because we've been able to do that, that's why we have continued to be a spectacular place where we make new discoveries and we advance health worldwide.
Yeah, I think I was talking with someone yesterday and I said, I couldn't agree more with what Talmadge had just said. And he said, at UCSF, no one cares where the great ideas come from. And so, Steve Hauser listened to a postdoc who said, what if we do something totally radically different? And he didn't say, you're just a postdoc, go do the experiments I told you. There are places in the world that don't do that, but that story, I think, just is really epitomizes UCSF, and it shows the power of bench to bedside and back. So I thank you for that. How about maybe, Dr. Giacomini, you can talk a little bit about some of the impact your faculty are having on advancing pharmaceutical chemistry and regulatory science and all sorts of things that are relevant to getting the right drugs for the right conditions into the right people.
Yeah, so let me backtrack and underscore what Talmadge just said. It is a collaboration. What is so nice about UCSF to me is that we don't have a siloed school of pharmacy off in a building over here. We are integrated in the bowels of the campus, and we're interacting with all the different faculty from all the different schools. So if you look at a discovery, like let's say chronic pain. Chronic pain is a good idea because a lot of people are suffering from it, and it's very difficult to treat because you're trying to balance pain control with addiction. You don't want the addiction, and you don't want the sedation. So what Brian Schoikott, one of my pharmaceutical chemists, we have the chemists. We have a great pharmaceutical chemistry department, but they need to interact with people, for example, in the School of Medicine. So Brian partnered with people in anesthesia who think about pain, people in anatomy who know about the biology of pain, and they began to develop non-addictive pain medications, which is a non-sedating, or not non-sedating, but lower sedating, which can treat that horrible peripheral neuropathy that people have to live with over the years. So that's an example of collaboration. Another great example of collaboration is autism. Autism is really untreatable right now. You have autism, and who knows where it came from, and how do you treat autism? Matt State, who is chair of psychiatry, has partnered with Nevin Krogan, who is the QBI director, and that partnership has created, efforts now to discover new targets for autism. And with the chemists that we have in the School of Pharmacy, and the biologists, and the pharmacologists, and the toxicologists, we'll be able to think about developing those new therapies and advancing those along. So I think the fact that we're not siloed, that we collaborate across the boundaries of the school, makes this UCSF very special.
Dean Reddy, we had the really interesting opportunity to talk with one of your faculty recently, a young woman who's working both in the clinic and in research labs on head and neck cancer. Can you talk about how the School of Dentistry is supporting their scientists and maybe some of the things that you're most excited about?
Sure. So, one of the great things at UCSF is that research is by the neighborhood, which is agnostic to the school where someone might sit. And so that, it may be people working on different aspects of the same disease in different parts. So they may be fundamentally an immunologist, but they may also be a periodontist at the same time, and they may be putting that together. I mean, I think that the future is really unique because we're sitting right now watching the convergence of technology, biomedical research, and patient care, which were once, in my mind, distinctly different disciplines that are now, the lines are blurred. And so, if I ask you about quantum computing, I'm trying not to say AI, but quantum computer, organoids, bioprinting, and gene editing, are those technologies? Sure. They're certainly biomedical research, but they're also patient care right now, and they're evolving quickly. And I think that convergence throughout healthcare globally, really the epicenter of that convergence is where you're sitting.
That's great. Dean King, another surprise question for you. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what the School of Medicine is doing to address medically underserved areas in the San Joaquin Valley.
Yeah, so we have been in the San Joaquin Valley for 50 years. We have the UCSF Fresno. It was developed by an initiative several decades ago to try to improve the quality of care in Fresno and the Fresno region, and to increase the number of physicians who would stay in that region. So we've had a graduate medical program there for a long, long time, residents and fellows, and it has gotten better and better and better. As a result of that, we said we should expand to be a regional campus in Fresno as a designation that allows us now to consider moving to not only graduate medical education, but undergraduate medical education. We were doing it all along, but now we're deliberately doing it. And we've now partnered with UC Merced, a new school that has actually growing leaps and bounds. It's fantastic to go down there and see how they're changing all the time. But we now have a high school to Merced college program. We call it San Joaquin Valley Prime Plus. High school to Merced. They're promised an opportunity to come to the UCSF School of Medicine if they successfully complete their training at Merced. So they have 4 years at Merced. They get into our SJV Prime program, which you already have here, but now they're coming from the Valley to us, and we're going to be trained in the Valley. So their entire education, after we get the program built, will be 4 years at Merced and 4 years at UCSF, but in the Valley. The reason we do that is the evidence shows that if we continue that pipeline, a majority of those students will stay in that region and practice. And so taking that evidence, we're trying to actually use it to prove that we will improve the availability of physicians there. I will tell you, we're in the year 3. The students that we have gotten to go to that program are spectacular. They're all from the region. People were concerned, well, are there enough good students? Like, man, they blew us away. Like, there are 1,000 applicants for 14 places. Wow. And they are just amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, so it's not only looking to build doctors, but it's giving people from that area the opportunity to send their sons and daughters to medical school right down the street. So that's really...
Eventually, we will have UCSF, University of California, Merced School of Medicine. Yeah, that's the goal. Probably another decade to do, but we'll get there.
Yeah. One quick question before our final question, but we've talked a lot about the transdisciplinary collaboration and research. I'd like to, a question from the audience is about how about interprofessional collaboration, and particularly related to our aging population? So maybe we'll start with Carol at the end there. What are your thoughts about interprofessional education? What can we do better? What are we doing well?
Yeah, great question. Important topic. I think one of the experiences, so one of the things I want to talk about is the leadership at the university. Because coming out of, we're not out of it, but this current crisis that we're experiencing with impacts, with federal changes, and seeing this team work together in a real way has been transformational for me, where I just look at everybody is in it together, and it's interdisciplinary, right? And people aren't concerned about, we got to do this for pharmacists. Well, of course, we're all concerned about these things, but we're also as a group together. And, reflecting back on that earlier video about the Baker academic and research building that's being built on Parnassus, where this School of Nursing will find its home in the near future. It's like the opportunity to be in the middle of all these different disciplines. So that opportunity is huge. In terms of education, we're doing a lot of movement in areas like simulation, just as was spoken about earlier. How do we do this in a lab? How do we do it outside of interacting with people? And then how do we take it into the different systems that we work in? And there's a strong commitment to this. We're still trying to figure it out. I mean, it's a process to learn and to work with one another, just with people you're in a class with, let alone across disciplines. And people have immense respect for people in the other disciplines. Nurses have. I mean, these are the people we work with every day. Physicians, pharmacists, dentists. It's, we're a team, but translating that into the learner experience is really important. And there's a lot of research going on about what's the best way to do that, to actually change the ways that we can deliver care.
I mean, it's part of diversity. We need teams of diverse expertise as much as we need teams of diverse demography. It doesn't help that everybody has the same skill set or the same lens through which they look at programs. So I think that's really important. Okay, I think we're almost at time, so I'm going to do a round robin last question. When alumni look back on their UCSF experience 10 years from now, what do you hope they will say UCSF gave them beyond a degree? Actually, we don't give degrees. They earn their degrees. Yes. They earn their degrees. What do you hope they will say UCSF gave them beyond the opportunity to earn a degree? Kathy.
I knew you'd call on me first. Okay, so I think what I'd like them to say is that we gave them confidence, we gave them courage, all the things you need to lead. I look out there and I do see some of our alumni who have had stellar careers. And they have been leaders in their field. So leadership is a skill that I feel is very important, that I would like my alumni to turn back and say, I have the courage, I had the opportunity, I learned how to lead. And then, of course, the other that is nearest and dearest to my heart is innovation. I want my students to come back and say, you gave us discovery projects, you taught us how to inquire, you taught us how to be curious, and for that reason, we are innovative. And I'd like to come back, and I'm seeing some very innovative alum out there, so that's what I'd like.
You need courage to be innovative, so
yes.
Those are great phrases. Yeah. Mike.
I guess I'll take it back to thinking about the pride values, and I hope that the alumni would have a sense of pride that UCSF is their academic home.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
That's it.
That's it.
Your turn.
Gonna riff off that just a little bit, but go in a slightly different direction. So I hope they will come back and say, UCSF ruined me. In the best possible way, right? I hope they will come back and they will say that they were taught not to ignore inequities, not to ignore nuances, and not to be just good enough when better is possible.
That's great. Yeah. When better is possible. Yeah. I'm going to go to Carol next and let Talmadge finish up, since this will be his last dean's panel as a dean. Carol.
Yeah, I would say this is an easy one for me because of this panel we had last night with 3 of our amazing alumni, and they talked about this here, about their experience at UCSF, and just what it provided for them being exposed to different disciplines and this scientific discovery and innovative place, and faculty who cared about them. And they knew where they were graduating from an institution that was the best institution. And it opened doors for them everywhere they went. And so those are the words of our alumni last night. And that,
That's
that
awesome.
was very inspiring,
Wonderful. Talmadge?
Well, my hope is that 10 years from now, people will come back and say they not only learned a lot here and benefited from the knowledge, but they learned how to lead. They learned how to follow. So we also, you have to actually be part of a team and be willing to follow. They learned how to serve, right? And they learned how to continue to grow. That we didn't. This is an evolving field, and there's a lot of new knowledge, and it's frightening. And so you have to actually, what we hope we've taught you, we've given you a roadmap for how to have continuous improvement, how to have to continue your education, and that you're really good at it. And I hope that in 10 years, the dean sitting in my chair will have the experience I've had going around, giving talks at various universities. I think this is a completely true statement, 99.9% true. Almost every time I go give a presentation, someone will walk up to me after. 2 things will happen, usually. First, I'll meet somebody, and I'm like, immediately say, I like that person.
You mean to say what?
I like them.
Oh, yeah.
Just subconsciously. Then I realize they tell me, I graduated from UCSF. I mean, it's striking to me, right? And the second thing that I'll hear is a leader will come up to me and say, we really love your students, your graduates. Because they embody what I just said about they're very knowledgeable, they care about people, they care about inequities, they care about disparities, they care about working, they are able to work in teams, they believe in interdisciplinary education, but also interdisciplinary practice. And so that is what I hope ends up happening 10 years from now from our current graduates. I think many people in this room embody the same things, and no matter where you go, you provide that leadership and guidance and support. I think that I want to end with, I've been through a lot. I was born at an early age, so I've been through a lot of different periods, and I've seen things happen. And so, in my calculation, I think this is the 4th major crisis where I thought the world was coming to an end in academic. So we've successfully navigated those other periods, and we will do this one as well. But I hope that we don't let the crisis go to waste, and we use it to make ourselves better and stronger and more and doing the right thing. And I think at UCSF we've actually talked about this. Although we're in complete distress a lot of the times, actually, that later today we'll be in more distress. We're talking about some more things that we have to talk about. But we have done, Sam, when he took over, had us go through, I remember it's almost 10 years ago now, right at the beginning, Sam had us go through the scenario planning and said, let's look at, what can happen. And initially we were like, why are we thinking about this? And then we thought about, well, what could be the worst case scenario? And it didn't happen 100%, but it happened 80%. and what was striking to me was having sat there and actually think outside the box. Think about what could happen. Think about where we are and what we offer to the community. Sam set us up to actually see it happen, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can do this because I've actually thought through it, Yes, they changed it a little bit, but we can work through it. And I think that's what we'd like to continue to have this do. And I think we'll come through this. We're going to be fine. And the students who we have the opportunity, and the school, all of us are about the same. This is the bad news. We accept about 2% of the people who apply to our school.
Right.
2%. So this is, it's really hard to get into here. I would not be accepted. I understand that. No, I'm not mad. I mean, it's like I got here eventually. But it's really hard. But that gives us an opportunity to select the right people to do the right thing. And if we handle them right, train them right, work with them in the right way, they're going to lead us out of this. I'm confident that my granddaughters are going to help us save the world.
Well, I hope you've gotten just a taste of the excellence that is represented here on stage. And I want to thank you for your time and your insight, and also for the role you play every day to make sure that UCSF remains this incredibly special place for everyone. To our alumni and friends, thank you for being here, and thank you for being recognizable as UCSF graduates in the work that you do. I hope you continue to work with us to strengthen the life of this university, and I hope that you take the opportunity to reflect on this conversation and think about ways in which UCSF continues to impact your life. I have to give some, what are these? Some a little closing reminders. If you are attending the All UCSF Luncheon, it will take place next in the lounge, which I believe is downstairs. Oh. And then for those of you joining the Half Century Club luncheon, that gathering will be in the Fisher Banquet Hall, which is also downstairs. So see you at lunch, and thank you so much for coming today. Thanks to our panel.